All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Two Trucks, One Garage. Today I'm working on the triple fuel pump setup on the Escalade. So kind of went over the setup in the previous video. I'm going to be doing 3 Walbro 450s, 10 AN line, and a whole bunch of stuff. Already got this out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the fuel tank back over underneath the truck so it's not just open fuel, move the gas cans out of the way, and then I'm going to start working on modifying the hat. As I said in the last video, my plan with this thing is to take a 10 AN bung, or 2 10 AN bungs, and I'm going to weld them onto the end like that. So that's a pretty big feed line right there. That's the stock 3/8 line. That is the 5/16 evap line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the 3/8 as a return, and then I'm going to weld these 10 AN bungs on here, and I'll have a pretty decent feed line. So the evap line comes through on the bottom like this. I'll probably cut it flat so this will come straight down. That's kind of what I got in my head there, is to weld these on. And then I'll probably remove this pressure sensor here, and then I'll end up putting the other wires through that. I do have a bulkhead grommet that I'm going to put the wires through, so let's just get started on it. So if you guys are watching before, I was having issues with the high duty cycle, wasn't able to get enough fuel in it, so I just found this when I pulled it apart. I did verify it on the disassembly video. This little clip, which is the supply side from the pump, is loose. So that's not completely clipped, or it popped out, and you can see the O-ring is kind of pushed out in there, the green O-ring. So basically that's probably what my fuel issue was. It's trying to feed it through the little regulator thing, the regulator filter thing here, which I believe it was clamped when I put it together. So I don't know if it was actually pressure, maybe it was too much pressure for this thing and it popped it out, but that was definitely an issue. So it was probably just squirting fuel right out the side of it. Okay, so getting a little bit of work done on the hat. So I did test fit the bulkhead, and that was kind of an adventure getting that thing to work because it's a stainless, so it's kind of hard to drill, and I ended up just drilling it out big enough. I don't have a 3/8 inch NPT tap, which the threads on this thing are 3/8 NPT. So I ended up cutting some slits in this little fitting here, and it actually worked pretty decent to get me a little bit closer to where I needed to be to kind of get that fitting in. So that thing is in, it's tight. I am going to loosen it, take it back out before I do any welding on this just because of heat transfer. And I took the little barb off the bottom of that thing. I just took the round section, so it used to look like that. And then I cut this section and put it on a belt sander to make it flat so that I can weld the AN fitting to it. So what I'm doing here is I'm measuring up what I'm going to need to get this thing to work. So I have it kind of measured out. The line on the box is where the top of the hat is going to be. And then I have it measured down about 8 1/4 inches. It's 8 1/2 inches to the bottom of the tank. So I'm just kind of eyeballing this, measuring it up to where I'm going to need to cut this thing. Try to get a visual here. So it should sit in there something like that, because this fitting is going to be welded right onto there. So it'll be a little bit of a hanger. And then I'll cut this pipe off down here, weld the bottom of it shut, drill some holes, and then I'll weld these little barbs in there. So let's get started on that. Alrighty, boys and girls, so I jumped ahead a little bit. I just kind of got to working, and I just kept working. So welded the 10 AN bung there, 10 AN bung there, and then I just welded in all of the barbs all the way around. Got one back here. This one I'm going to keep in here because it's coming from the 3/8, so that'll be like my my drain or my return. So So I can like stuff it right inside just like that so it'll return back nicely. Put the hose clamp around it, and then it worked out perfect that that's just long enough that it kind of rides on the base there, and I can put the clamp on. I'll probably remove the label. But yeah, so basically this thing will be, I can unclip it and then just screw the thing off if I need to. So I'm able to separate it from the hat. The main pump that's going to be on the regular circuit, the stock fuel pump circuit, will clip into the hat here. I still got to figure out how I want to add the level sender, so that's probably what I'll work on next, is trying to fit that back into the basket. But let's work on this. Let's figure that out. Okay, so I added the hoses. Now I'm trying to figure out the level sender. So the level sender basically goes right on this side of the basket, but the way that this is set up, it's going to hit the basket. So I got to try to figure out how I want to do that. If I want to modify this, these are stainless, so maybe I could try to weld these onto the top of the hat and then have just this section that holds it welded to the hat. I'm not sure yet, so I got to do some brainstorming, and I'll let you know what I figure out. Okay, so the farther and farther I get with this thing, the more difficult I feel like it's going to be to get in there. So I can fit the pumps in there really nicely. What I'm trying to do is figure out how to get the level sensor on. So I figured out that if I put this in the tank first and then drop the hat in, I think I might be able to get it to work where I can put the two pegs in. So I welded the little pegs on there, and that's how I'm going to try to do it. But I might have some issues with trying to actually tighten that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it in all at the same time, or I might have to like bend them in, stuff it in. I don't know. We'll see. I'll make it work eventually, but it's going to be a little challenging with trying to keep the level sender. Okay, so here's what I ended up coming up with for the level sender. So basically just cut it all this way. This is normally two separate pieces, but I took and kind of plastic welded it back together. See how it's all mashed together? So I just used a flathead screwdriver and then hit it with a torch and then melted it all back together so I can have the two separate pieces. One piece actually holds the holes for the rod, and then one piece holds the level sender. So that's why I welded those two together. So I'm going to try to... So I do have it separated. It's definitely not going to be able to drop just straight in there. So what I did was I disconnected it. I'll drop this piece in, and then I'm going to drop this in, and then I'll try to assemble it when it's all in there. So I should be able to lift this up high enough that I can get to that nut and put it all together. So you can see the nut is, we can see the AN fitting is right there, so I should be able to get that on there with my fingers and tighten it. So that's kind of the plan. Let's see how it works.
Or if I do use, I'm going to have to just cut freaking holes in it everywhere. So that kind of brings me back to where I'm at right now with the whole turbo thing.
Okay, so it's actually quite a bit later. I gave up on that and completely kind of redesigned the whole thing. Before I had that whole big section on there, I cut it off and I actually flipped it. So the level sender is on the outside. So normally, hose is running forward, the sender's on the driver's side. So I actually switched it so it's running to the passenger side, but it normally would hit the side of the tank. So I shortened the arm and ran it backwards. So it'll still come up, but it doesn't have much of a travel because there's like a little notch in the tank and it would hit the wall. So I'm going to try that, and I mean, I guess in the fully down position I would still have about a quarter tank left, which isn't terrible. You know, it's not bad to get gas early once in a while. So I'm going to try that. Hopefully this thing will drop in there. The other way I had it was just, like, it was impossible. I messed with it for probably 45 minutes and I couldn't get it in. I know I didn't want to leave it like that. Even if I did get it, I wasn't happy with it because it's just so hard to work on. And I hate building stuff that's hard to work on because every time you work on it, you're like really pissed off at yourself. Like, why the hell did I build it this way? So trying to take a little extra time to make it easier to work on. I trimmed a little bit off of the corners here. So I'm kind of down to Just a little piece left. I'll cut these evap lines out of here. Definitely been messing with me. Alright, I think I finally got the recipe here. So I tuck the float down underneath now instead of out the back. And I adjusted the pumps. So I think I got what we need. Jeez. Yeah, I think that works. What I want to do is I want to test and make sure I got stuff hooked up. So that one says 0.4 ohms. Point 3, 0.4, so that one's hooked up. Point 3, and then my level sender. Showing 0.251 thousand ohms. So I'll have to look at that and see if 250 ohms is zero on the level sender. If so, then it should be good. I'm guessing it's good. Alright, so that is it. I'm going to bed. I'm probably not even going to edit this tonight because I'm tired and I'm sore. I was sitting down on the ground trying to get that thing in. It was at least 2.5 hours I was trying to get that thing to fit. So, outside of all the time on the bench that I was like making it and eyeballing it, so it was definitely an adventure. But it's in. Hopefully everything works. I don't have to pull it apart again. Next is just going to be running the feed line, the return line. I might just use the stock feed as the return because it's already 6 a.m. and there's already a line. So I'll probably just do that. So tomorrow I'll be putting like the fuel rail on and put the injectors in. Sure.